Political campaigns used to be like this.
New Labour will give new life to Britain.
Now they're like this. And to do that well, you need data. But what data? And on who? That's what digital rights campaigner Pascal Crowe wanted to know. So he put in subject access requests, effectively legal demands for data.
Eventually, we got back responses from all 9 parties that we sent subject access requests to. Of those 9 parties, 4 held interesting personal information on us. Unfortunately, Labour came back to us and said that they wouldn't be able to fulfil their basic requirements under the law.
Pascal wasn't the only one, as he found when he asked the Information Commissioner's Office for its record of complaints against political parties.
And what we found was that Labour are by far and away the worst offender. Out of 110 complaints about the political parties, Labour account for 64 of those complaints, and 46 of the complaints about Labour are about their handling of subject access requests.
These were just complaints, not proof of wrongdoing. But the next most complained about parties, UKIP and the Conservatives, only had 12 each. Data protection experts say that's a bad sign.
It's very worrying when any organisation doesn't fulfil subject access requests. From the individual's point of view, they don't get to see their information, how it's being used, so that hampers their ability to exercise other rights and defend their freedom, which might be something really significant for that individual. It's also worrying from an organisational point of view because it kind of indicates that there's something going very wrong in their processes or perhaps their information architecture, which could indicate very serious problems to come down the line.
Labour told us it was working hard to process outstanding requests and that it had agreed a plan with the ICO to do so quickly.
Data might seem abstract and niche and nerdy, but it's everything in politics right now. It really is no exaggeration to say that what data scientists do in there will define the next election by using your data to define you.
Pascal still hasn't found out what data Labour holds on him. But if it's anything like the other parties, it could be very personal. The ICO told us its inquiries into the Labour Party were ongoing. This latest tale of politics and data clearly has more to run. Roland Manthorpe, Sky News.
Well, with us now to talk about this, data privacy consultant John Sopanis. John, good morning to you. This is very interesting. In terms of the political parties, whose data are they collecting? Do you have to be a member of these parties?
Yeah, so it's a varied. There's a range of data that they collect. So the Labour and Conservative Party will have data on their own members, of course, people who have signed up to their website who belong to those political parties. But if you are a UK citizen and you're visiting their website or you attend events, etc., there are lots of different ways that these parties can collect information about you. Now, luckily, on both the Labour and the Conservative Party website, there are privacy policies that explain exactly what types of data those parties collect from you and where they collect that data from. So yeah, both, I went through the privacy policies this morning, both Labour and Conservative collect data about you when you travel, when you move across the internet and interact with their sites or interact with social media pages. Also information that you post publicly on social media, they will use to do analytics and understand what issues you care about, which kind of areas you're from, and use that information to essentially give you messaging about their politics and their parties. But I'd say going through the privacy policies, both Labour and Tory, as you move across the internet, they collect information about citizens to understand who's voting on what, who cares about what, and to use that information to educate people about what they're doing as a party to address those issues. OK, so that's the kind of data they're collecting. And what are they doing with it? Are they using it to specifically target individuals, or is it just to get a sort of a range of ideas and information? Well, I mean, both Labour and Conservatives use marketing and advertising campaigns on social media, on billboards, on TV. And they'll use that data to inform, one, the content of that messaging, and two, to micro-target, to break down the population into different subsects of groups of people they think will care about that certain messaging. So, both Labour and Conservative will be targeting swing voters to get them to vote for them. So if you know who those swing voters are, then you can hit them with messaging that you think that they're going to care about. So both of those parties are interested in that data. Both of them collect it as you move across the internet. And both organisations have an obligation when you submit a subject access request to respond to that and tell you what types of information they process about you.
So the end result of this, is this what we're seeing, for instance, if we log into Facebook
Yes.
and we may see a political ad pop up on our feed? Is that the kind of end result of the information we're handing over?
That is the end result, and it's really interesting you say that, because here we're talking about whether or not Labour and Conservative as political parties are adhering to the rules, but what we know is when we talk about micro-targeting advertising online, actually it's third parties, companies like Cambridge Analytica, through organisations like Vote Leave, and Dominic Cummings is the head of that, who's now a special advisor to Boris Johnson and the Conservative Party. Those individuals were the ones that had 87 million UK and US citizens' personal data, 5,000 data points on every single individual. Those organisations have 1,000 times the amount of personal data that the actual political parties have, but those political parties are using those third parties to micro-target people on social media. So I think the story about Labour and Conservative is a misnomer. The focus should be on organisations like Cambridge Analytica, the people who ran those campaigns, who are now inside the Tory party.
It's quite interesting. Our technology correspondent, Roland Manthorpe, in his report there, was talking about people knowing their digital rights. And since the Cambridge Analytica scandal, people are more aware about, you know, if they click something on social media or on a website, they're handing over information. But do people care that much? Because just looking at the sample of the amount of people that went onto Labour's website and requested through a Freedom of Information Act that, you know, to find out how much data Labour are holding on them, it's a very small sample of people that actually do that.
Yeah, so I think requesting a copy of all of the information that a company has about you, you know, it can be a 20, 30-page document.
Can you request to be deleted, more important?
You can request to be deleted, and that's a more interesting request, and that's a more interesting right to access. If you are genuinely interested in what these organisations have on you, and you want to do some investigative research and to understand whether that's legitimate, make one of these requests. But it's very dense. It's not for the normal person to read 40, 50 pages of data about them. What you should be concerned about is why are they using the data? What types of campaigns are they doing? And I think if you see something that makes you feel uncomfortable on social media, if you feel like you're being micro-targeted in a way that's uncomfortable to you, you have the right to go to that organisation and say, tell me what data you have about me, because I don't know why this advertisement came to me. I want to understand what you know about me. That's when you should exercise that right. So yes, 64 complaints out of 70 million people in this country, relatively small, but it shows that people do care. And if you do have concerns about how you're being micro-targeted, submit that subject access request. Labour have a big red button on their website to do it. The Tories, they don't have a big red button, but they have an email that you can email. So do that to access. But if you have those concerns, do it. Otherwise, I think you're OK.
OK, John Sopanis, thank you very much for talking about political data.